It's 1934, and America's still clawing its way through the Great Depression. Breadlines stretch down city blocks, and families gather around radios, hungry not just for food, but for hope. In Washington, FDR's New Deal programs are trying to stitch the country back together again, one job at a time. Meanwhile, Hollywood, just 6 years removed from the silent pictures, is booming. But the boom comes with boundaries. This is the year that the Hays Code begins full enforcement, cracking down on what movies can say, show, and suggest. Sex, crime, and defiance, well, now they come with consequences. And yet the magic of cinema refuses to dim. Shirley Temple is becoming a national sweetheart. It Happened One Night is redefining romantic comedy, and, well, the silver screen offers something real life struggles to: escape. In 1934, America is battered but imaginative, censored but wildly creative. It's a paradox only Hollywood could sell and only America could believe in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cinema 100, and this is the 1934 draft. Will and I have finished another calendar year, and we put 1933 to bed, and then it's on to the infamous, scary 1934 year, Will, where we get to the pre-code haze no longer. We will be in the haze. It doesn't show up until July, but we will officially be putting a new stamp and a new era in the film industry. So we'll get there. But as always, Will, let's start in 1933 with our Oscar picks. Let's run down the movies real quick, if I can, just so the films in which we watched in 1933. We start off with King Kong, Designed for Living, Morning Glory, The Private Life of Henry VIII, Duck Soup, Wild Boys of the Road, The Story of Temple Drake, and Lady for a Day. Now, Will, we had a lot of holidays kind of bashed in or mixed in over that time, and it felt like 1933 took a lot longer than normal years do for us. Yeah. What do you remember from all of the movies, just like the totality of that experience? How did you feel 1933 was as a year overall?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because we're real time. We're kind of up. We just got the Oscar nomination, so kind of excited about all that. And looking through this year, 2024's Oscar list is kind of in comparison with this year. At least the movies we picked to watch were pretty good movies, right? But nothing that really nothing like the year before where we had like 2 to 3 masterpieces. So this year I thought it was pretty good. King Kong was a good movie. Designed for Living is, as you'll find out here pretty soon, was kind of my standout movie from the year, but then everything else is kind of a notch down. So this year was good, but it kind of feels like maybe a down year in this run.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to say that, is that this year, yeah, what a great comparison to this real life 2024. Yeah. I know we kind of get stuck in our time portal here a little bit, but you're right. I felt like we were missing that, not necessarily masterpiece, but I'm not sure that we had anything that was ranked too high. Maybe 4.5. We flirted with that a little bit, a couple times. But the consistency that we're looking for, and I'm not sure that had anything really to do with our drafting ability as much as it did with just the year overall. Because I think we would land on 1, right, if it was strong. Yeah. Looking at movies in the past couple of years, like we've had Scarface in 1932. We've had I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, where we got introduced to Paul Mooney. In 1931, we had City Lights. Then we also got introduced to Frankenstein and Dracula. So whether or not those are considered masterpieces in their genre or not, they are considered classics. And I'm not sure that when you look back on 1933 as a whole, I think maybe people consider the original King Kong as a classic. Maybe Duck Soup. But I think when it's all said and done, I don't think those two will end up on our list of the top pictures from the year. So it's just a weird year, so to speak.
Yeah, and this year I still think is important. The movies we picked are kind of interesting as we look out into the future, right? Because we have a director in Frank Capra that we're seeing for the first time, and even though his movie was pretty good, it's fun to kind of see these early steps, because we're going to see, obviously at least 1 or 2 more of his films that are considered masterpieces, at least if we're drafting smart. But then there's, Katharine Hepburn we got to see this year. Looking out into 34, there's a couple of other directors and actors that might pop up here and there. So I still think we had a good year. it just I think because we had all that time kind of stretched out, it made it feel a little bit weaker than the previous years.
Yeah, I think that's right because I think a lot of times when we finish a year, I have a strong kind of inclination of where I want to go with my picks, with the nominations. I know exactly what movie stands out. This felt like we've been doing this since maybe late October. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
it was early November because you had Thanksgiving, you had Christmas, you had New Year's Eve, you had my birthday. All these things that kind of jam pack in there that distract you from just what you do in your mundane everyday weekly routine. You kind
Mhm.
of get the hustle and bustle of life. So yes, it will be interesting for those of you listening. Bear with us as we try to remember all of these movies and the important characters along the way. um, I think one last note that I might have just to kind of go off what you're saying, looking ahead a little bit here. um, there's a lot of directors that have kind of been around
Mhm.
that we still haven't really dove into yet. Let me give you a few names that maybe we'll get to in 1934. Maybe once again they'll get kind of pushed to another year. It's kind of like that those
Yeah.
Hall of Fame classes where it seems like these guys are obvious shoe-ins, but then when you start stacking them up with other obvious shoe-ins, they get pushed down another year. And then when that happens over and over and over again, you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. What happened to John Ford? Did we get to John Ford? What
Mm.
happened to Cecil B. DeMille? Did we get to him?
Yeah.
W.S. Van Dyke, players like these that we haven't got to yet that clearly are names. And if we're doing our job right, we will get to them. It's just a matter of picking the right ones at the right time. So
Yeah.
all that being said, anything else to add for the year 1933? Because next year, as we finish 1934, we will get to our favorite, top five, top 10 movies so far from 27 all the way to 34, which
Yeah.
I'm interested in. I'm kind of excited to get to just because I want to know where you are versus where I am because we might be. It seems like in the last couple years, we've been
Mhm.
starting to kind of put a little distance between ourselves when it comes to what we agree on. Um,
Yeah.
where the first maybe four or five we seem to be more simpatico.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of like also has more to do with the films available to pick from. So we're getting more choices to choose from, right? Because there's more films available. There's more films that kind of have decent ratings. So we're kind of taking a risk by choosing one over another. And I think this year, especially, as we get to 34, there's spoiler alert, I've got 11 movies that I was interested in to watch. So I think we're going to start getting into that territory where you and I are like if we're arguing for something, it's because it fits our idea of what a great movie is.
Yes.
And even though we both really love movies, I think we come at them from slightly different angles. So I think we're going to start to see that variance a lot.
100%. And just to give you guys at home an idea, Will said he's got 11. I've got quite a few as well. But according to Letterboxd, I'm looking at in the year 1934, there's 1,905 films that were released just on Letterboxd alone. And I'm sure they don't have them all covered. So we're not going to go through all of them, but we will put up some onto the draft board. That's 1934.
Yeah.
Let's get to 1933. And if we can, let's kind of go over real quick. Just we've got those movies that I listed earlier: King Kong, Designed for Living, Morning Glory, The Private Life of Henry VIII, Duck Soup, Wild Boys of the Road, Story of Temple Drake, and Lady for a Day. Um, how important is it to you? Because I think we've been doing a good job, but mixing genres,
Mm.
making sure that we're paying attention. There might be a year that there's like three musicals that we just have to see, right? Because
Yeah.
even in mid 1930s here, Will, it still looks like the movies that are winning at the box office are still the feel good time to go to the theaters and have an experience of the musical. Um,
Yeah.
when you go and Google and do your research of best movies of those years, they're not quite matching up like they did in early days Cinema 100. So, where are you at with what we're doing so far with genres? And do you think we're continuing to do a good job, or do you think it's going to get harder as we go? Kind of continuing to bring in comedies, bring in horror movies, bring in musicals, whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah. No, I think we've been doing a pretty good job. Most everything we've watched has been worth watching. for one reason or another. There's been a few duds. But even then, with the duds, they feel like it's a good movie that to have watched from this year because it tells a little bit of the story of what might be coming next, right? Like I'm thinking of Morocco, right? Because there's a movie this year that has in 1934 coming up that's got the director and the star of Morocco back. So I, I think we've been doing a good job of spreading out our choices to the important movies and trying not to get pigeonholed too much into romance. We were kind of heavy on romance early, but that was kind of the popular movie it seemed that was made in those early years. So I think we've been doing good. But I think what we're going to start running up to, obviously, like when we get in, if we're still doing this, if we get to the 70s, right, there's going to be 40 movies that we want to watch. And I just don't. It's going to be harder to really. I think at that point we're going to have a really easy time making sure that we're hitting the right genre, like all of the kind of genre of film. But right now we're still kind of in a nice spot where even if we pick half of our movies, I think we can get a good mix of different types of film.
Totally agree. And I think we're going to have to get creative with how we decide what movies we're going to pick in those later years, because whether it's to bring on a third party and they pick, you know what I mean? They end up picking them for us, or we take all of our options and we throw them out on the internet and we let our audience kind of decide for us. Or maybe we start, picking comedy. This is our comedy draft. This is our drama draft, whatever, you know what I mean? Just like whatever it is. Or maybe we can kind of just use those as loose structures and still get what we want in there. But you're right. It's going to be tough because there are certain years where I can think off the top of my head, there might be 10 movies that I think should be on the list. And you might present 10 different movies because they're just so jam-packed with, there's just great movie years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. 1933, Will.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to ask you before we kind of get to the heart and bolt or nuts and bolts of our, our picks, Oscar picks here, is just what do you remember? What do you remember? For example, things that just off the top of my head that I remember the very first 20, 30 minutes of King Kong feeling like a big movie to me. It felt like a fun experience watching that movie. It felt like a summer blockbuster, so to speak, which is kind of how I see those King Kong movies. I remember that. I remember Gary Cooper taking a step up, in my opinion. He really is starting to come into his own. I didn't like Gary Cooper in the first two movies we watched of him, to be completely honest. I found him to kind of find his footing a little bit, and maybe that's because of the help of a director that is as good as Ernst Lubitsch. Katharine Hepburn found her to be completely annoying, but also very good at acting at her role, because that's what the role involved. And a lot of the things, there's just a few other things that, I want to kind of get out, is just that Charles Lawton, the powerful performance that he brought. And then finally, just the ambitious nature of telling the story of the Wild Boys on the road, or of the road. I just feel like these are the things that are going to stick with me from this year. And maybe, like we've said, it might not be as totality as like a strong catalog of films compared to some of the previous years. But I do think there's things that we take from every year and every viewing experience that will stick with us throughout time. So what do you think you're going to remember?
Yeah, so this year for me it really comes down to the movie of the missing piece, because it felt like almost every movie we watched from this year, we were really honing in our discussion of it, of we could see the things that were missing. Like we could see the movie being great, but here's what's missing, X, Y, Z, and it almost always seemed to be the filmmaker didn't quite give us enough of the storyline or the backstory of the characters to really flesh those characters out and make the story feel important. And I think that's what I'm going to remember most from this year, is that we had a lot of good movies that had a couple missing pieces. The other big, I'm being a little harsh here, but like Design for Living, I do think at the end of the day, I have that at 5 stars. So like that's probably going to be what I remember, is Ernst Lubitsch being a great director, because this is the second film we've watched to him, and both films, this and Trouble in Paradise, am I remembering that correctly?
Yep.
Both of these films by Ernst Lubitsch have, we talked about it, that magic touch. There's something there that you can't quite explain, but you can feel. And
Yes.
I think that's probably the thing I'll remember most individually is his touch on these films really does have something special.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember kind of the conversation that we had on that, and and you were still sticking with close to a 5 stars. Let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Let's not make the audience wait any longer. So for those of you that kind of pay attention to the show here, whenever we finish a calendar year, we like to do our faux Oscars on the movies in which we watched. And this year, I've already listed that we've had 8 films, and we had a couple double features put in there this time, but we do best director, we do best picture, we do best actor, best actress, we do best supporting actor and best supporting actress. And then if there is someone that feels compelled to do best screenplay, or just the best scene or the best thing that they will remember, we can always bring that to the table as well. So Will, let's start right where you left off. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to bookend the big ones here. We're going to go best director in the front, and we'll go best picture at the end. But I think
Okay.
you've already kind of stooged off your best picture, so I'll hold mine to the end.
Yeah.
Give me your reason why, if it's Ernst Lubitsch, why you chose him as your best director. And let me just real quick, I'm just going to give you the nominees that I think on this list of directors that I think
Yeah.
are eligible. Maybe I'm wrong. Ernst Lubitsch for Design for Living. I went ahead and I put in Frank Capra for Lady for a Day. I put on Stephen Roberts for The Story of Temple Drake. I put on William Wellman for Wild Boys of the Road. And I'm sorry, not Story of Temple Drake. I didn't have that one on there. I had Alexander Korda for The Private Life of Henry VIII. And then I had Marion C. Cooper and Ernest Schutzack for King Kong. Those are the 5 that I put on there. Did you have anybody else you want to give honorable mention to, or did I kind of narrow them down?
No, after you corrected and went to Corda, he would have been the
Yes.
change I made, but you made it. So those sound right to me. Yeah.
Okay. Am I right in saying that Ernst Lubitsch is your man?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's obvious because of these films, this is the one that has no mistakes. Everything front to back is executed the way it's supposed to be executed. There's no there's like a moment in the third act where you're kind of like, why are they going down this route? But it ends up being just fine by the time you get to the end. Like if they're off in Shanghai or in China or something like that, kind of missing the 2 lead male characters. But it gets back on track. So this is the only film for me that had a front to back, like coherent message, coherent picture. So for me, it's pretty straightforward.
This was the hardest one for me. And the reason why is because I had 3 candidates. I was just really caught off guard, and I have a lasting impression now from A Lady for a Day. I think there's going to be better examples of Frank Capra to come. And I do think that Lady for a Day needed some help. But for what it was overall going for, I think that's the film I'm going to remember the most. But you're right. As far as like direction, as far as leaving their thumbprint, and it feels flawless, I just don't know that I've seen a better example of back-to-back years, back-to-back films where without the guy, I'm not sure the movie works as well as it does. So I'm with you, Will. I just wanted to give an honorable mention to William Wellman because I thought it was an ambitious go in Wild Boys of the Road, and I really wanted to give it to Frank Capra, but I think his day is coming. I went ahead and I agree with you. I went with Ernst Lubitsch, even though I'm not as compelled to agree with you that Design for Living is as great of a film as you see it. Liked it, didn't love it, but I definitely think Ernst Lubitsch, even though you don't love a film sometimes, you can just see how a director. We just watched a movie this past week in The Brutalist. It might not be a film for everybody, but if you can't tell that director doesn't know what he's doing, didn't have a clear vision, you'd be completely missing the point. So I just think that you can have both. I'm with you. I went with Ernst Lubitsch as well. So
Okay.
we agree 1-for-1. Let's see if it continues. Our second category tonight, Will, is going to be our best supporting actor. Best
Okay.
supporting actor. Let's see if I can find my candidates. I can't remember. I'm starting to wonder if I did this one. Oh, I did. Okay.
Okay.
I did have. Well, let me just list. I listed them all. So here's what we got: King Kong, Bruce Cabot, and Frank Riker. Designed for Living. Supporting actors are Edward Everett Horton. I gave top bill to Gary Cooper, and I also gave it to Frederick March. So,
Okay.
does that feel right?
Well, you can do what you got to do, but
All right, let's scrap the idea of me giving the nominations.
yeah.
I must have miswrote down how we did a few of these on the list. So what we'll do is let's just list off our winner here. So
Yeah.
in your case, Designed for Living, did you give Frederick March the supporting actor here and Gary Cooper top bill? How did you go about it?
So the way I looked at this was I just went ahead and gave Miriam Hopkins the top billing.
Okay,
And I just went with a tie with Gary Cooper and Frederick Marsh here
interesting.
in supporting. I did this. If you've watched these episodes before, you know I like to commit category fraud from time to time on these to make them work for my arguments. But they're playing off of each other in this film is, I think, the best thing from this year. Their ability to occupy a room together and never feel like one's overcrowding the other was just top notch. And because of that, I kind of wanted to honor them both here in the supporting because without each other, there was no way it was going to work. And that's why the playing off of each other, I'm kind of calling it supporting each other. So best supporting actors go to Gary Cooper and Frederick Marsh.
You know, I'm not sure I can do that just because I do think that it's a tripod there of leads. Because if I allow that, where does it end, Will? Where does it end? Like, I wish I had a better example of a movie, a more modern movie where maybe there's something simple. What's the movie with Tom Hardy, Chris Pine, and Reese Witherspoon? War?
Yeah.
Maybe in that case, Reese Witherspoon is not as strong in this case as Miriam Hopkins is, because that part makes sense. I did not go that route, but I can understand it. And we allow Will to play fast and loose with the rules here. You can do whatever he wants.
To maybe this argument works better if it's in Best Actor. I feel like giving one over the other to either of these guys is disingenuous because they're on equal footing throughout the film. So I don't like if you're going to put them in a category, they have to be in a category together. So does it work better if I make that argument for Best Actor?
No, that part makes. Yeah, no, I think they both would go in Best Actor. Like, you could nominate both of them for Best Actor. The issue then becomes, you're right, because I think they're handcuffed together. They're either in Best Supporting Actor or they're in Best Actor, right? The issue then becomes whether or not you're going to be able to give them the love you want, because I do think there's a better candidate out there for Best Actor. That's just my personal taste. I could be wrong, because they're definitely 1A and 1B tied together. I just went with Cooper as the top billing only because he got the girl, right?
Yeah. Well, no.
No?
They end up in the back of the car together.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It's been a while, Will. It's been a while. Okay, you're right. All right. Fair enough. So I'm going to let you have your way here. Do you want to go supporting actor with them and then come back to a different guy? Okay.
I'll keep him in supporting. Yeah.
Fair enough. I went with Douglas Fairbanks Jr. from the movie Morning Glory. Do you remember this guy?
Sure.
Let me bring up the movie here if I can real quick. All right. Joseph Sheridan, played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr. I felt like of all the movies that we watched, I almost went with Kibbe from Lady for a Day. I thought he had a nice role. And I think I wanted to go with Frederick March, but I think I ultimately landed on the fact that I think they're together, and I believe they belong in the lead actor category. But Sheridan's character, played by Douglas Fairbanks. I just thought he brought the most to that movie besides Katharine Hepburn, even though we've discussed that it felt like everybody was in there mainly just playing, you know, a role for Katharine Hepburn to go off of. But I thought that he
Right.
brought the most to that movie outside of anybody else in that. And when I think about supporting actors, his role felt like it was a supporting actor to me. So I went that route with him.
That makes sense to me. I think it's a good choice. I think it's the more proper choice for supporting because he's clearly in a supporting role, and I think he also does a pretty good job. I want to make sure I'm remembering this correctly. This is like the playwright to
Yes.
Elf. Okay, yeah, and I remember us kind of being critical of him early on, but then he pretty quickly finds his footing and does a
Yes.
really good job. So yeah, I think this is a good choice.
Yeah, and I think that's same for Design for Living with Gary Cooper, right? Is that it felt like he got better as that movie went on, and even when we did the anecdotes, if you recall, Ernst Lubitsch filmed this movie in chronological order,
Mhm.
and reason he did that is because he felt like they would get a better footing of their character. So I think sometimes you can kind of start slow but end hot, and that's kind of where I went with it. Um,
Gotcha.
let's dive into Best Actor then, if we must. You had put the two guys from Design for Living into the supporting characters.
Yes.
Tell me where you went then with your Best Actor, and I will let you know if it matches mine.
Okay. Well, I went with Charles Lawton from Private Life of Henry VIII. Um, I, there, there are some really incredible moments that he had in this film of like I guess the word prescience, like just being in the moment and be understanding what he's trying to accomplish with his role. And there's one moment in particular I've thought about quite a bit. It's that wrestling match. He goes out there and he's trying to prove a point, right? In his older age, like just trying to show his woman, right, show his wife that he's still the boss. And he there's something about the way he kind of approaches each because they're like time periods, right?
Yep.
Each time period of his life, he feels a little bit different. He feels a little bit more bonded with the state, right? Towards the end, he's trying to make the right decision for the state. He's trying to make the right decision for his guilds, and he just does a really good job of helping the viewer understand that it's not just what he wants, but he's trying to also be a good king.
You know, going off of that, you're right. There's something about. I was thinking about this today. I sat through my niece's 3 hour play at the
Mm,
Croswell. They did a musical Into the Woods, and it was blown away
mm,
by how many of the kids could sing from
mm.
all across Ohio and Michigan. But I was sitting here thinking about acting overall, and knowing we were going to do this show tonight, and just thinking about Charles Lawton because he's my best actor as well.
Okay.
For all the reasons you said and more, there is something. What makes his job so incredibly hard here is that you talked about each wife being kind of a timestamp, right? Uh, uh, like this moment in time where he was at in each, and each one is so particularly different than the other one. When you're an actor, it's not just reciting the lines on the paper and getting it out there, and then people interpret what they want from it. It is embodying those lines and also in giving the inflection, the demeanor of where that character is at that particular time in his life with the state, with the wife, and then as it shifts, he's got to feel that shift so that it comes off organic on the screen. He had to do that 5, 6 different times from Sunday in this movie, and I bought it the entire route. I felt like he had empathy for the people. I felt like the ones that he was in love with, he was in love with them. The ones that he wasn't, he didn't. There wasn't like a huge, like, chauvinistic kind of demonstrative style to him. But yeah, everything felt very defined with what he was doing. So, like, I'm with you. I thought it was a brilliant performance and probably the thing I'll remember from this year the most, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, not quite for me, but yeah, it's still a great performance.
Still a great performance. All right, we move on. The best supporting actress, Will. Give me your winner and why.
Yeah, so this one was a little tough.
Has been growing for the last couple of
Yeah,
years. It's been tougher.
yeah. I don't know if it's just because of the films we're picking, or if there's kind of been a shift. I think the next couple of years we'll be able to play with this theory a little bit and see if it's actually shifting towards men, or we'll see over the next couple of years. Small sample size, but the one that kind of I was looking back and I was like, which performance do I remember best from a supporting actress? And the one I came up with was Mary Duncan as Rita Vernon in Morning Glory, because she is given so little to do here, and she only has what, 3 scenes, maybe 4, and in those 3 to 4 scenes, you can remember her performance, and the performance she gives is striking, especially in that last scene where she's trying to demand what she wants, and she doesn't ultimately end up getting it in the Morning Glory. And it was really the most memorable supporting actress performance from this year. And I think it's a very good performance. Would it have been the winner in the last couple years? Maybe not, but still a very good performance here. So that was my choice.
Okay, so we had of the choices, I felt like the movies that we could pull from were like, okay, Private Life of Henry VIII had a few female actresses in there that didn't feel necessarily important to the movie, but yet still played a role. I kind of dabbled there for a second. Um, I'll tell you where I ultimately landed. So Mary Duncan was definitely like the number two. And if I didn't play fast and loose with the rules, it probably would be number one for all the reasons you said. She's the she's definitely a supporting actress. She stands out amongst the rest. I was just torn with screen time and not necessarily with her though, with the person. And I want to debate this with you real quick.
Mm,
We talked about this last week, and I'm going to stooge it off right now. May Robson. She felt like
mm,
the leading actor in that movie for the first 30 minutes. And then I felt like they kind of abandoned her.
mhm.
And it made me feel like she might have been just a supporting actor in that movie overall. And because of that, I went with her as my best supporting actress,
Mhm.
which feels, I'm sick even saying that, Will, because it feels like to me like her performance was so well done. It
Yeah.
feels like she should be in the lead actress. And if you went with her as lead actress, great. If not, no big deal.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I put her as a supporting actress, is just because I felt like the movie kind of abandoned her and in that role, and she became a secondary character. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the only thing I can think as an argument against you here is that the movie is literally about that is named for her, right? Lady for a Day is about her. So
Fair
that's the
enough.
argument against you. But I think you're right in the thing that we kind of were really frustrated with that movie overall was that we didn't get enough of her. So um, yeah, I think you can be right here and leave her in the supporting role.
Okay. Okay. Well, then that brings us, Will, to our best actress. And if she's my supporting, I can only go and tell you that my best actress then is Katharine Hepburn.
Mm,
And rightfully so. I think she's the one actress of all of these outside of maybe probably Miriam Hopkins. And
mm,
you could go that route right there, and you wouldn't be wrong for it. But I just thought, as far as I mean, to me, they just gave her this stage and said, okay, do your thing. It felt like the obvious choice to me,
mm,
but there is a certain charm to Miriam Hopkins in Design for a Living that
mm.
makes you made me anyways, kind of pull the reins back a little bit and go, okay, maybe there's more of a contest here than I thought. But Katharine Hepburn, I think she played that character the way she's supposed to, even though it bugged me at times.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good choice. I think it's probably the right choice because there are moments in this movie where she's going a mile a minute, and she doesn't seem distraught by it at all. She just executes on it, right? And
100%.
I think it's probably the right choice, but not the choice I went with because I I have Miriam Hopkins in her performance for Design for Living. I I just keep coming back to this film because I do think that her especially when she's first describing her feelings for both of them, when they're in the apartment together and she's trying to figure out which direction she wants to go and she can't, and she lays down on that day bed at the window, and she's just talking to them both, and they're both at her feet, because that's just what you do when you have a woman this smart and this quick and this beautiful. And I just think she did all the right things in this film for me.
I have no problems with that because she definitely worked the camera there and did her thing. Best picture,
Yeah,
Design
I
for
mean,
Living.
we
Is
know.
that where
Yeah,
you're going?
yeah, yeah. It's an easy one for me. It's the only one that I feel like, if I were to, I've got a list on Letterbox, my 5-star movies ranked. That one's going to be on there. The other ones are all missing just a little bit of something that keep it off that 5-star for me. So,
If I remember correctly, this is the movie where you and I were the furthest apart on. Am I wrong? Or am I
um,
thinking of a different movie?
I
Was
thought we
it
were
was it
morning
Morning Glory?
Morning Glory. You were down on that a little bit more than I was,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'm having trouble, and I think it's because we watched it early on. I am having trouble remembering the third act of Design for Living. I my whatever reason, I keep thinking that there was an issue in the third act that I didn't love, and I can't remember exactly what it was. Um,
She gets married to the guy, the
that's what it
business guy.
was.
You
That's what
really
it
didn't
was.
like that. Yeah.
I did not like that. You're right. Thank you for thank you. That dude, that has been burning a hole in my head. Thank you for that. Yes, that was my issue with it. To not give it to the heights that you might have gave it to, but I understand. I went with Lady for a Day. And the reason I went with Lady for a Day is it's everything I want in a movie. I first of all, I I used to get into a conversation with my buddy, almost an argument about like, how can you not watch trailers? How can you not watch trailers? Because trailers to me would be the thing that got you excited for a movie, right? I know nothing about Lady for a Day at all. And did I lose you? Oh, there you are. I got you back. Got you back. Can you hear me? Well, we're waiting on Will to come back with us. I'm just going to keep talking like he hasn't missed a beat. But I went with Lady for a Day. It is a movie that has heart packed into it and every chance that it can. Will's going to be joining us right now. And
All right.
welcome back, buddy. Welcome back.
Got me?
Gotcha. Can you hear us?
I still. Oh, there you are. Got me?
Can you see and hear us?
I can see you. I can hear you now. Not sure what's
Well, we
happening.
just finished the draft, and I appreciate your effort. And we're gonna go with my 8 movies this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, no, I was just saying, Will,
Trailers.
before you got kicked off here, I was just saying that my movie was Lady for a Day. It was my pick for Best Picture,
Yep.
and it just snuck up on me at the end. I was kind of talking about movie trailers and this
Yeah.
idea of, I used to tell my buddy all the time, I can't believe you don't watch movie trailers. You just go in blind, and I do because I love getting excited for a movie. But the opposite of that is that there sometimes might make you not watch a movie, right? And in his case, he goes in blind and watches every movie that he could possibly think of just because he loves going to the movies. I felt like I didn't know much about Lady for a Day. I believe you're the one that put it on the draft board. I might have even fought you on it to maybe put in a different one, and we ultimately went that route. I love this movie. It's got the amount of heart that I want from my directors, from my movies. I definitely feel like it wasn't perfect. There was an issue towards the end, or maybe not towards the end, towards the middle of that movie. Act 2 kind of fell flat on its face a little bit, but overall, it's my favorite movie of the year because I'm going to remember it the most. I'm very excited about Frank Capra. Let's just put it that way. Very excited. So,
Yeah.
give me anything else you had for awards for the year 1933, whether it be screenplay or best scene or anything that just sticks out to you. Best cinematography. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, best screenplay I did write down. I had Lady for a Day here, because I do think that there's a simplicity to it that just kind of lets it it's organic, right? It feels like it's on the right path. And even though there's the hiccup with her not being there for about 20 minutes on screen time, everything still kind of flows naturally. And there's, it gets a little absurd in that third act where you got all the extras waiting around to play their parts, and they don't actually get to play their parts. There's a different party that comes, right? It works out. It could have gone a completely different direction and not worked, but it worked anyway. And I thought because of that, I really like this, the way it was written. So
Totally agree. Totally agree. Did you have best scene or anything, best image, anything that will, kind of like we put this category in when we had Charlie Chaplin handing
mhm.
the, or realizing at
Yeah.
the end the love of his life, she realizing it's him and making sure that she made the right decision. We kind of went that lasting scene route. Did you have anything?
Yeah, one honorable mention is the Private Life of Henry VIII.
Okay.
When he's at the end, when he's eating all that food, he's just kind of like he's done, right? He's just done, and I just thought that represented it perfectly. But the choice I had here was King Kong on the Empire State Building. I mean, it's an image that transcends. I mean, it's embedded in culture, so it has to win here, I think.
Yeah, if you were to put the most iconic images of each of these movies and just put them on a thing and said, "Tell me the one that you know for sure," it's King Kong, and that's going to be the one that years and years and years from now. So that's the same one I had as well. But
All right.
all right, we move on. We turn the calendar over to 1934, and boy, oh boy, we got about 6 months to enjoy, and then after that, they crack the whip. Mr. William Hayes and his codes of regulations will come out, and we, unfortunately, we as cinema goers and fans of free speech and artistic expression, that will be going to the wayside, so to speak, and it will have to be done so in a more clever, new, nuanced type of way. Um, just saying that out loud, and we're finally there now. Give your thoughts on what's about to be ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really interesting. I'm not sure because I didn't look into it too much, but I have one of the films on here. It's a French film that released in 1934 in France, but it doesn't come out in the U.S. until 1947. So I didn't really put two and two together. I thought maybe there was some sort of like World War II related delays here, but it might make sense that this was one of the movies that couldn't crack that Hays Code. So I think we might be seeing it pretty quickly here if this is a movie that we choose. And then long term, I'm hoping that there's only a few years where we're dealing um, with some of the like rollbacks, right? And then the directors and the filmmakers are smart enough to figure out the ways around these codes, not necessarily like by being bombastic about it, but finding those nuances where we can still have great films. I mean, we get Wizard of Oz several years into the code, so clearly great films can still be made. So I'm going to be interested to see what the lag time is on that, and if we have a few years here where we're like, man, why are all these movies so similar? And that would be my biggest worry.
Yeah, mine too. And I do think, just like with anything, just because you put handcuffs on artists at times, they're still, but even though they have the ability to paint, they're going to find a way to tell a good story because that's what
Mhm.
good artists do. Um, the the enforcement of the Hays Code happens July 1st, 1934. So
Okay.
about the second half of the year. So we're going to have whatever we get to watch prior to that. And I do wonder what happens after that. So any movie that was maybe made prior to this but had a release date coming out afterwards, I wonder what what implications come from scenes
Yeah.
that push the limits, or what happens to the studios that go forward showing those, and do they get hit with
Yeah.
a fine or some type of pushback or some type of restriction? There's going to be things that we're going to learn along the way. Um, that
Mhm.
I'm interested as a a cinephile to learn about, but as a cinema goer or a fan of what we're watching, we want our artists to have every resource at their disposal so that they can give us the best story possible, the best viewing experience possible.
Yeah.
And and here's the thing that worries me the most. So one of the things that's taken place here in the state of film, and I'm going to list a couple things here, Will, is the
Okay.
enforcement of the Hays Code, which we talked about, July 1st, 1934. It takes its impact. Here's the significance of it. The Production Code Administration, the PCA, led by Joseph Breen, was established to ensure strict adherence to that Hays Code, ushering in an era of censorship that lasted until the late 1960s. So it's not until we get to that kind of rat pack of Spielberg and Kubrick and all those boys and Scorsese and all those boys that come from that 70s generation. There's a reason those guys stand out. It's because they were able to, they were
Right.
allowed to, right? And it almost makes you feel like who else would have got that if not them? It might have been a completely different four, right?
Yeah. No, that's the best point, I think, is what artists did we not learn about because of this? Which ones had something to say that couldn't say what they needed to, in order to, become all-time greats, right? And not just, sometimes I get into this trap of thinking of things ranked, right? Like, because that's just kind of what we do. Like, what are the 10 best films from this year, or 10 best films all the time? Who are the 10 best directors? But like, in reality, what weren't we given in this time period that might have changed something in the future? Like, could we have
Oh,
gotten to could have we have gotten to civil rights 10 years earlier if we had the artists being able to say what they wanted to say? And there's just all these what ifs that come from this that is the most interesting part.
yeah, and even so, it's like the content might have been kept getting shoved down the line. I can't touch that until then. Can't touch that until then, right? And sometimes content can push technology. So
Mm,
how much sooner could we have got to Titanic? Could we have got that to that 10 years sooner if maybe we had a shorter period of pre-code or I'm sorry, of the code haze. So maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe it's not, because content matters sometimes, and if you're not constantly shoveling things down the line, you're thinking about how you can pull this off, and maybe you get to those technological advancements sooner too. I mean, it's a possibility. So
yeah, no
another
doubt.
thing in the state of film, Will, that I think is worth mentioning, because I fear we're not going to draft this movie, but I do think it's something that needs to be acknowledged, and that is Walt Disney's The Three Little Pigs, his short film, The Three Little Pigs. Why is this significant, Will? Is because at the sixth ever Academy Awards, the Oscars decided to honor Walt Disney and his groundbreaking animated film, The Three Little Pigs. Things that came out of this, Will, the song Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, this
Hmm.
became a Depression era anthem. And it's kind of what kind of sticks to people when they think about some of the great songs and things of that era, and
Yeah,
who to think that comes from Walt Disney's The Three Little Pigs. So just something to note, because I don't think it's on your draft board. Is that fair to say?
correct.
One other thing I want to touch on here in the state of film in 1934, Will, is the idea of the actor, of the star, finally getting the shifting of power. Right? So
Mm,
here's what happens. In early 1934, MGM decided to loan out none other than Clark Gable. Even though he was under contract, Clark Gable was loaned out to Columbia Pictures, part of the Little Three studio systems at the time, as a punishment for going to MGM and demanding higher pay. Because Clark Gable decided to go to Columbia and was loaned out, they thought nothing good would come from it. And guess what ended up happening? Gable starred in just a little movie called It Happened One Night, Will, which
yeah,
became a massive success and revitalized his career, and therefore started shifting the power to the stars and made studios have to kind of rethink their attitudes towards their contracts with their actors.
yeah. And spoiler alert: the first film on my list, right? Everyone's list. It's the first film that wins the big five, right? The two supporting, production or picture, director, screenplay. So
Yeah.
this is the all time great film. And for I didn't realize what I didn't realize is that it was kind of spurred on by this, loaning out, from MGM. So that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and it's reverberating effects to this day, 2025, where nobody's going backwards. Like the studios are not going to be able to get the power back, so to speak. You know, we are in the era of the influencer, and who's bigger an influencer than our A-list, celebrity movie stars? So
Yeah.
we're not going backwards.
Well, that can be a good thing, I think.
Well, at least in that, yeah, it should be, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the other thing that needs to be noted is early use of Technicolor. We're not quite to the perfection of Technicolor yet, but it does need to be said that films like The Cat and The Fiddle and L.A. Karacha, they are playing around with Technicolor films, and full color films, they're still way too rare due to the cost of them, and they're just not something that people are taking serious at these moments. So we're getting early day color. It's not quite there yet. So,
Got it.
anything you want to add on the state of film before we go to the state of the United States?
No, I think that covers it. A lot of the only thing I noticed this year is there's a lot of like historical dramas, like time period biography pieces. I was running
Cleopatra.
into. Yeah, Catherine the Great has two films about her this year. So I was just running into that a lot. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe a preview of what we might start running into here is a look back into our past rather than, because it's a little bit safer to talk about things in the past than to place them in the present. So,
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. I didn't think about that, but you're right that those might become more prevalent, here in the next 2-3 years, just because you get over that hump of,
mhm.
the date of 1934 being when we implement it, but then everything after that is being made after the fact, so they already kind of know the rules. Um, let's get to the state of affairs if we can with the country. So, Will, one thing we didn't mention, at least I don't think we did it on 1933, is the repeal of prohibition. So
Mm,
finally, after 13 long years, we finally get to a place where in this country you can legally buy and sell alcohol again. Because of that, it brings the economy just a niche, just a notch back, right? So now
mm.
the unemployment rate is at 21%, where it peaked in 1933 at 24.9, 25%. So it's starting to help. And then I think with Roosevelt's New Deal and everything like that came
Mhm.
in place, things are starting to kind of tip back the other way. Even though we're going to have long effects of the Great Depression for years to come, it seems like in 1934, 1933, that might be the hump that got us back to the other side.
Yeah, no, definitely this year. There's a lot of things I was kind of looking through, just different things that were established, different agencies in the government that were established, different like uh, acts go into place here to try to help spur the economy back into the right places. So this year was kind of a big year in that turning point. Still, at the top of the mountain here, but on the other side, hopefully.
And finally, technological and cultural shifts. Well, movies and entertainment still seem to be the number one form of escapism during the Depression. Movies like It Happened One Night and The Thin Man entertained audience alike. However, radio still continues to be the predominant as the primary source of home entertainment, with programs ranging from news to comedy shows. Uh, I think that's something that we kind of expect to be the case here for the next foreseeable future until the TV gets, invented and brought into the homes and ultimately kicks out radio. So,
Yeah.
do you know what year was TV? Was that in the 40s, early
That's a good
50s?
question. I feel like it's the 30s, but it's one of those things that takes several years for it to become more commonplace. There's the 1955 in Back to the Future when they've got the one TV they can roll in for dinner, right? So it predates that, but it's not going to be. I would imagine it's invented by now, but not necessarily a household item.
Let's find out. The first ever television was 1927. Let's see when it became. Yeah. Looks like first public regular high definition television station was started in BBC in 1936. So yeah, we've still got a ways to go on the television here before it becomes a what kind of a mainstream temple in American society. So long ways to
Yeah.
go. All right,
Yep.
Will. I'm excited. You're excited. We've got a lot of movies to get into and not a lot of time to get into it. We are at the 54-minute mark. Usually at this time is when we dive into our draft. And for those of you that don't know, Will and I will each take turns kind of putting a movie on the draft board. If we immediately agree and we see no reason to continue to discuss it, we put it on the draft, we draft it, and there it goes. However, everything else will get put on the table and then discussed and chose at the end, hopefully rounding out somewhere between 6 to 8 movies. We have yet to cross past 8 because we are trying to get to that year 2025. But here we are, 1934, Will. I think it's
Yeah.
already been discussed, but Frank Capra has a nice little movie coming out that sweeps the entire Oscars 1 year from now, and it's called It Happened One Night. Everywhere I looked, Will, this movie is at the top of pretty much everybody's list. The only
Yeah.
thing that I seen that it didn't really make the top list of was the box office. It was not the number one box office movie of the year, which is okay because it still made the top 5. It was number 4 with $1.36 million made. So, Will, is it safe to say It Happened One Night is at the top of your list and needs to be drafted?
Yeah, that's number one. It would make no sense if we didn't watch this movie.
So for those listening, the achievements Will have already mentioned, but let me just kind of, if I can, talk about the significance. Revolutionized romantic comedy genre and became the first movie to sweep the Big Five at the Oscars. It's directed by Frank Capra and stars Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. Now, Claudette Colbert, we have not seen or heard from on our journey yet, but she's got another movie that comes out this year. That's how many?
She has 3 on
3.
this on my list.
Okay, what are the other 2 that I'm missing then?
Okay, so I've got she's in Cleopatra as
Okay.
well, and
Which
then
is
there's another. Yeah, there's another movie here called Imitation of Life,
okay.
and she's lead actress in that as well. So she has quite the year here in 1934.
Okay, big year. And you know what? I'm seeing that a lot with a lot of actors, like Will Rogers. We're going to see his name. Again, another guy that hasn't been on our journey thus far, but he's in quite a few movies this year as well. So things that I think are going to just constantly be kind of happening is that these actors, because they're hired by studio heads and they're contracted to do so many movies, they're really at the kind of the whim of the studios to say, hey, we want you in this movie. You're going to be, right? So
Yep.
the plot of It Happened One Night, just to kind of round out what we're doing, is a spoiled heiress running away from her family teams up with a ruggish reporter on a cross-country adventure filled with romance and comedy. First film to win all 5 major Academy Awards. Will, we locked it in. There should be a sound effect there. There's not. It Happened in One Night. First movie off the board. Will, I don't know how many we're going to get to, but we've got maybe 7 slots available, maybe less, maybe more. What's your number 2 movie that you'd like to nominate?
Yeah, so actually for me, it's I've already mentioned it. It's Imitation of Life. It stars Claudette Colbert. It also has Warren William, who is in Cleopatra with Claudette Colbert as well. So that's kind of interesting. 2 leads in 2 different movies. I'm assuming by the same studio. I didn't look that part up. I lost you again. Hopefully you can still hear me. But
we can.
Okay.
We can still hear you.
Okay. So the tagline here is 2 mothers, one black and one white, and their daughters struggle with class and race in the 1930s South. So when I started looking into this movie, it kind of became something that I feel like we need to draft. It's one of those movies. We haven't run into race a lot on our little Cinema 100 journey here yet. It sounds like Louise Beavers, who's the other lead actress here, is a career actress who finally gets a role in a starring role here, and apparently Freddie Washington, who plays Louise Beavers' daughter, is mixed race, and this performance is at the top of her profile because her IMDb profile because she is unable to secure roles in the future because of her mixed race, because people can't see her beyond that. So, just kind of reading some about this movie, I felt like this was one that belonged on our watch list here.
So this is the director of John Stahl. And if I
Hmm.
just off the top of my head, I believe we have not got to this gentleman yet either,
Not yet.
which is good because I felt like last year, we kind of dabbled into let's see the journey of some repeat directors, right?
No.
Now here we are. We've got one with Frank Capra already, but now we've got John Stahl that's on the list here. This was not one of mine. Um,
Hmm.
but I got to be honest with it. I overlooked the plot of this one, and just hearing you read it, this kind of is everything that I want in a movie, especially 1934 and seeing how they dissect this. Because you're right.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what movie would you say has tackled race the most on, whether it be on purpose or just a sub theme, the most so far on our journey here in Cinema 100. Is it the
Yeah, I
first
mean,
one?
Hallelujah, you mean?
Hallelujah. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the first all black film, but is it necessarily a dissection of race in America, or is that just black culture? I can't help me. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's about black culture, but it's also by a white director who's interested in the uniqueness of that black church culture. So I do think that there's it's an all black cast, yes, but I do think that it's dealing with race in pretty particular ways. So yeah, I think that was. I mean, you could say the jazz singer was about race, and I think you're probably right. But I think to look at that first instead of Hallelujah would be a mistake.
No, I agree. I guess what I was just thinking is that my point was that we don't have too many
Right.
in the 7, 8 years that we've done this. That it would be interesting to take a look. Let's put it on the table. I'm not sure I'm ready to draft it yet, but you've piqued my interest. And anytime we can get a first time director here for the show, it's something that I'd like to do as well. So, okay, my second movie is one that I think you're going to be excited about because
Okay.
it's not something that you think that I would normally put on a draft board, but it's a little French film. It's
Hmm.
called La
Atalante.
Adelante. Adelante.
If it's French, it'd be Atalante.
Thank you very much, Will, for
Yeah.
taking the directed by Jean Vigo, starring Dita Parlo and Jean Daste. Achievements. Many consider this to be posthumously acclaimed as one of the greatest films of all time.
Hmm.
Now, here's the thing. Either you've sucked me in with hyperbole, right? And I bought
Yeah.
in, you marketed it, and I sold, and I chomped, and I bit, and I'm all over it. But
Yeah.
I think so far with the movies that we've been given that moniker to,
Yeah.
um, have held up.
Sure.
And we don't watch a lot of international films, rightfully so. We're trying to build an audience, and our audience is usually, 18 to
Not a
kind of
lot of French
50.
speakers.
Not a lot of French speakers. Thank you. Clearly, by my butchering of their language. I think it's definitely something that needs to be discussed. Will, the plot of this movie, if I can just real quick while I have it, is a young couple's marriage is tested aboard a barge as they navigate love, jealousy, and dreams. Uh, People consider this as a masterpiece of French cinema. If ever we were going to watch a piece of French cinema, it seems like this would be the one, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, you don't have to talk me into French cinema. I have watched my share of it, not as much as probably a regular cinephile has. But another interesting, just kind of side note on this. This is the one I was talking about that wasn't released in the U.S. until 1947. I'm assuming because it comes out September 14th, which is after that Hays Code date, so it doesn't pass the standard that they set. So interested by that, and I'm also interested by the director Jean Vigo, who apparently dies at before he turns 30, a few years after this because of an illness. So
Oh, damn.
to have this be considered an all-time great, and then to know that his career was so short, is one of those things that I feel like we shouldn't miss. So I'm right on my list, and I'm on board with you.
Okay, so again, just because we have so many we want to talk about, and I think it's important to make sure we look at it from that kind of 1,000-foot approach.
Sure.
Let's not draft it. It happened one night was clear. I do want to kind of just for those listening though, one more time with the name, Will.
It'd be like
Now he
Latte.
can't say it.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking too much about the L with the apostrophe. It'd be like La Atlant. La Atlant.
La Adelant. It's spelled Atalante. So I said La Adelante, and Will's giving it a different name. Either way, here's the thing I want to mention. It's rated 4.0 on Letterboxd and is the second highest rated movie of the 1934 year for those of you that love Letterboxd. So something to keep in mind.
Yep.
What's your next movie?
Well, I guess I want to put out. I guess the next movie I'm going to draft is a movie called The Thin Man, directed by W.S. Van Dyke. Stars William Powell and Myrna Loy as a married detective team that search for a missing inventor and kind of run up against a bunch of different perils along the way. Right. So I know one of the reasons why this kind of piqued my interest is because it has 5 sequels. With the same actor and actress. Van Dyke doesn't stay on for all of those, but early kind of, like sequel action here just kind of piqued my interest. And it also has pretty good ratings on Letterboxd and IMDb. So I thought that it would be an interesting movie to kind of watch for this year. Sounds like it's got some funny comedy in it too. So it meets that criteria.
Aaron Sorkin would love this film. Apparently, it was nominated for Best Picture, and it's iconic for its banter and chemistry. Just the way that it goes back and forth, it considers itself to be one of those types of movies. Directed by Van Dyke, like you said, but the plot is a retired detective, Will, and his witty wife solve a murder mystery while charming everyone they meet. You're right. This did have so many sequels that come off of it. My only question is, and I just want to make sure that we, just because we watched the original one, doesn't mean we have to watch all those 5 sequels, do we?
It seems like they go down in quality each time for what I was looking at. But I was just kind of curious to see what spurred all of those sequels. So it must be good if it got that much on the back end.
The Thin Man, rated 4.0 on Letterboxd, the number 3 highest ranked movie of the year for 1934 for those on Letterboxd. Again, let's put it on a table. It was one I had highlighted as well. So far, we're pretty much hitting on all of them except for the second one that you nominated. That one I overlooked. I will admit with my next pick, Will, this is a passion pick. This one, it's just because there's 2 names that are going to be very difficult for me to walk away from because they're linked. Okay? Let me get to what I'm going to get at. There's a movie called The Man Who Knew Too Much that's directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Now, hear me out. I don't need to watch every Hitchcock film. I don't. We know what he is. We know why he's great. We want to watch the great ones. He's tag teamed up in this movie, Will, with a little actor known as Peter Lorre. And coming off of what we just seen in M and how great that was, I would almost feel like we'd be doing a disservice to this project if we, at the very least, didn't sit down and try to watch what Hitchcock and Lorre can do together. It feels like almost a match made in heaven. Did this one show up on your list at all? I can understand if other movies need to because this is not considered. This isn't even considered to be the best The Man Who Knew Too Much movie by Alfred Hitchcock.
Right.
He was contracted to make this movie again in the late 50s, Will. And by your head nod, I can tell that you know this, but just for our audience. So he actually remade this movie again later on in his career. And that movie does get more praise, but it doesn't have Peter Lorre.
Yeah, that's right.
Where to show it up
So
for you.
I think if we're on the border, because this one's on my list as well, I think it does look like it could be very, very good. My argument here, if we're kind of on the fence about this, if it's on the cutting block, so to speak, is in 56 when we get there, right, in 17 years, we could watch this as a double feature.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
So we could watch them back to back. So that would be my argument if we're trying to find something to cut and we can't figure it out. But for now, I definitely have it as something we should have on our list.
Just kind of finish out the movie, just so everybody knows, it's got Leslie Banks in it, Edna Best, and Peter Lorre. And achievements elevated Hitchcock's international reputation, which is an interesting take, and introduced the template for Hitchcock's latest thrillers. So just something that we've discussed. We will move on. Will, what's your next pick?
Next one for me is going to be. I don't have these in order, so I'm trying to remember which one I'm thinking of next. I guess I'll go with Cleopatra, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, starring Warren William, who we saw in Lady for a Day, and Claudette Colbert, which we're gonna see in It Happened One Night. And I think, description, we all know who Cleopatra was. She had a love affair with Mark Antony. And just kind of curious to see because, you get to the 60s and you have Elizabeth Taylor in it. And it would just kind of be one of those movies that if we could look back and compare, it would just be a fascinating project. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because it's there's going to be quite a few movies like that, like King Kong. How was that remade? It's still there. Cleopatra, and other movies that come from it. I didn't put it on here only because I thought you would, and I just had a couple others that I wanted to kind of go there, but I didn't put 11. I went with 5 or 6, and then I circled a bunch of honorable mentions that probably need to be on there. This was on that list.
Okay.
But I definitely think it could be drafted. And here's my biggest reason why I want to watch it. Cecil B. DeMille. He's a big name during this time. And he's someone that I don't know. Maybe we can look up his catalog here real quick if we can. Because let's see if I can get it up here real quick. What movie is this? Cleopatra, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So the Ten Commandments is the big one.
Right.
I think we've probably all seen that Saturday morning when we're looking for stuff to watch, and it just was on when we were 12, right? Or when we
Easter
were
time, yeah.
8. Yeah. So there's that one. Greatest Show on Earth is another one that sounds familiar. And then Samson and Delilah is one that I had heard of but haven't seen before. So also a big producer, it looks like, on a lot of different films.
I do think he's known more for his producing really than he is, but because he has Cleopatra and he has the 10 Commandments, especially 10 Commandments, right? Like he's forever linked to that. I would be for putting this on the list because part of me doesn't want to watch the 10 Commandments because it's about 10 hours long. And I've seen it, I think, not necessarily in its totality in one viewing ever, but I feel like I've seen it and be like, oh my gosh, this movie again, right?
1 hour for each commandment.
Yeah. So you'll forgive Will and I if we do not put that a part of our journey here. Maybe we do.
When we watch that, we've got to watch it on our iPad, so we're watching it on the tablet.
That's the only rule, right? I'm going to circle it again. I'm not ready to put anything on here just because I think there's a couple others that we need to get to, and then we'll kind of see where we're at. Because right now where we're at is we have one for sure. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 others so far. So we're going to be at 6 movies as of right now, Will. Right. So everything we've nominated so far is currently going to make the cut. My next pick, horror film. And here's why. In a time where horror is still horror is always going to be a niche, right? It's going to have its niche audience, but I think there's more of a mainstream audience for horror today than there was in 1930s, right? I think they're still trying to get their feet wet with what they are, and they're carving it out. I went with a movie called The Black Cat, okay? Directed by Edgar Ulmer, estimated to have made $236,000 at the box office in a year where the highest one made $2 million. This is a significant amount of money for a horror film, and here's why. Significance: a horror classic blending psychological tension with stunning visuals, and it stars both Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. So if we're going to watch a horror film this year, which we haven't watched one since 2 years, Freaks, with Todd Browning, it seems like if we're going to put him back in the saddle, this would be the year to do it and see how Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi work together. Just throwing it out there, just thought it'd be an interesting nomination.
Yeah, no, didn't run across this one when I was looking for stuff for 1934. So not sure how I didn't. But yeah, knowing that both of those, both actors are in this together would definitely be an interesting watch at the very least. Is it rated well? Like,
3.5 on Letterboxd.
yeah,
So it's up there. It's considered
yeah,
the 10th best movie of that year.
okay,
By a couple within the range of 10. I think I've seen it as high as 9, but usually
okay,
9 to 12 is where I keep seeing it fall. So we wouldn't be doing a disservice by choosing it by any means.
yeah, okay, yeah. If this ended up there, I think I would definitely be fascinated to see
Because
those
I'm
two
not
together.
sure how much more Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff we're gonna pick. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
maybe, but I know that I know that they are handcuffed forever to Dracula and Frankenstein, and
Sure.
I just don't know as far as actors if we'll get a chance to revisit them again. I thought this would be a fun one
Yeah.
to do. So,
Yeah.
what do you got for us?
Um, next one I'm going to throw at you in it's a combo pick because it's the Catherine the Great movies that both came out this year.
Okay.
The reason why I'm doing this is because they're both. The first one is called The Scarlet Empress. It's Joseph von Sternberg. Stars Marlene Dietrich as Catherine the Great. Story about Catherine the Great's ascension to power. And this one's rated better than the other one, The Rise of Catherine the Great, which is the second movie, the American version of this film. And it's directed by Alexander Korda. Stars Douglas Fairbanks and Elizabeth Berger. And I just thought it would be interesting to put these on here and watch them together to see the compare and contrast between these two films, one being American and one being German. Joseph von Sternberg's from Germany. So I kind of throw these out as a twofer. Also aware that if we choose Cleopatra, I don't necessarily want to watch all three of those films. So it's just wanted to make sure I mentioned both of these. And if we're looking for something historical, it might be a good option for us.
So here's I'll give you my pros and my cons. I too have it. I had it circled on that next list of tier because it needs to be discussed. It just
Yeah.
does. I mean, again, Joseph von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich they're linked together and they found success together and they continue to ride that horse. The thing about the Scarlet Empress is it is rated high on Letterboxd. It's a 3.9.
Yeah.
I don't have that other. What was the name of the other movie you said? The Rise?
The Rise of Catherine the Great. Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't even have that one on my list. So that one I overlooked completely. So I can't give you too much more feedback than what I already have. My cons, I suppose, would be we have now seen Morocco and the Shanghai Express with Joseph von Sternberg. So we've seen a couple pairings of him and Miriam Hopkins, or I'm sorry, Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah.
I am intrigued by the German American, how they would depict these characters and what that movie would be. My only fear would be I think Cleopatra would probably be a better movie to draft. And I too don't think I want to watch 3 of those movies.
Yeah.
So I'm with you all over the board. Again, let's nominate them because I have a couple more and I think you do as well.
Okay.
And then we'll come back because maybe one of them, even though we proposed it as a double feature, it might not. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
So, okay. The rest, I'm just going to throw a couple of you and then I'll be done with my side. Okay.
Yep.
I just not even necessarily that I'm nominating these, just ones that I think need to be discussed real quick. So a couple things I talked about. So Barbary Coast, directed by Howard Hawks. Haven't seen him in a while. Miriam Hopkins is also in this movie. The Barretts of Wimple Street. This movie has Norma Shear, Frederick March, which is the other guy from Design for Living, and Charles Lawton.
Okay.
3 heavy hitters right there, Will, as far as the acting world goes. Seen
Sure.
this movie be as high as 4 on Best Picture list and as low as 25.
Hmm.
Quite the range.
Yeah.
Not rated well at all on Letterboxd, um,
Interesting.
which is interesting. I
What is the
think I
name of this one again? I missed the
the
name.
the Barretts of Wimple Street. Um, if I was to type that in, let's see what comes up here.
Yeah.
Did you find it?
Elizabeth Barrett's tyrannical father has forbidden any of his family to marry. Nevertheless, Elizabeth falls in love with the poet Robert Browning, who's played by Frederick Marsh. And of course, Norma Shearer is Elizabeth Barrett. So
Yep.
um, interesting. I'm assuming Charles Lawton plays her father. Um,
I believe that's the case. Yes.
yeah. IMDb 6.9, so that's not terrible for IMDb. Um,
I'm sorry. Yeah, IMDb. Okay, that's where I seen a low one. It's 3.3 on Letterbox, which is a little below average, but we've drafted worse.
sure.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
um, so those it was those two. I don't really Barbary Coast didn't really tickle my interest at all. Another one is called Of Human Bondage. Betty
Hmm.
Davis kind of makes her it would be her on-screen debut for us. This movie did well at the box office, made $1.2 million.
Hmm.
Um, so that's where I'm at with those three. The Barretts of
Yeah.
Wimple Street, Of Human Bondage, and I just wanted to mention Barbary Coast. I don't think we're ready for John Ford's of the world yet. Will Rogers. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one more. I apologize. There was one more. It was called The Gay Divorcee,
Yeah. I
with
have
Will
no.
Rogers. And this movie is rated high.
Yeah.
And it has a Mark Sandrick would be the director. So those are the four. Any of those cross over with what you were doing?
I had the gay divorcee on here. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers are the stars here. They are gonna blow up in the next 10 years or so. Both of these, so that's why I had them here. Gives us a little mix too because we haven't really seen a musical or like a big Broadway type movie in a few years. So that's why I had that on there. Um, you know, I have one other movie. Well, I have two. The Affairs of Cellini. The only reason I had this on here is because Frederick Marsh was in it, and I was interested in seeing him again. But I think I'm more interested in the Barretts of Wimple Street, so I'm just gonna not even worry about nominating that. And then the only other one I have here is The Merry Widow. The Merry Widow is Ernst Lubitsch again. Um, don't recognize any of the names here. Maurice Chevalier and Jeanette MacDonald. A prince from a small kingdom courts a wealthy widow to keep her money in the country. Just kind of sounded interesting. I'm not sure we need to watch every Ernst Lubitsch movie, but um, just wanted to make sure it got mentioned. So,
And you did. You mentioned it.
all
Uh,
right.
I think we have. So here's where we are right now. Then we have for sure locked in. It happened one night. Frank Capra, Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert. Got it on the board. The rest of them we need to discuss. So, Will, it happened one night. Is it? It's a comedy drama. Is that comedy romance?
Comedy romance. Yeah, I think a rom com.
Okay, so let's go rom com for the genre on that one. I think these genres matter because we need to continue to try to get as eclectic as we possibly can.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
Now that's a repeat director as well, so something else to kind of keep in mind. Okay,
Yeah.
the next one that was nominated was The Thin Man, I believe was what the next one was. Am I correct?
I think I went with Imitation of Life,
Yes,
but
sorry.
either of those is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Imitation of Life. So that's a drama, correct?
Yeah, I would call it like an American drama. That's kind of
Okay.
what I was thinking when, yeah,
I'm really interested in seeing this movie.
yeah,
You nominated it. I do know that there's some. We're gonna get all right. Let's just before we put it on the board, let's do this. Let's go
okay,
with the ones that we are big names that, and let's just say right now, if you think that we should be watching it, it happened one night. We said yes.
yep.
Do we need to watch Cleopatra?
Oh, I don't know. I think
No.
yeah, it's really a toss up for me because it really depends. If we're watching Cleopatra or the Scarlet Empress, I'm not sure which one I prefer, and I would be okay with either. So as long as we have one of those on there, I'm good with it.
I would like to go with Cleopatra over the other one.
Okay.
Um, I just because I want to see B. DeMille, and I'm not sure we're gonna get to it. I'm not sure we're gonna draft the Ten Commandments. You know what I
Sure.
mean? We might, and because maybe we to just be true to what we're doing here at Cinema 100, we might, and we don't know what else is around it that year. But we might not, and there's a good reason not to watch it, and just because of the length, and
Yeah.
it feels a little self-serving too.
Yeah. Yep.
So okay, so we right now we have It Happened One Night, and we have Cleopatra locked in. Now we try to have some fun. Sometimes we do a double feature. We'll link things together. Maybe we can hold off on that at the end, or maybe it's the reason why we draft stuff. Um, did anything else jump off that you absolutely wanted to watch?
Yeah. So
Take
the
your
one
passion pick right now.
Imitation of Life. That I
Okay.
feel like we have to watch that one.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's a drama, and we've got a time period piece here,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got It Happen One Night. So far, so good. I think we're doing good, and we've got two new directors. So right now we're doing well.
Okay.
Where are we at with this French film?
I mean, it's next on mine. We should probably watch it. Um, the only concern I have, and I can look this up real quick to see,
Are we going to have
is it
access to it?
available? Yeah, can we actually watch this thing? Because I know it got restored in the 2000s, but I don't know if that means like it's available in Portland at a theater somewhere, and that's the only place you can go watch it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can't even find it on the Just Watch app, um, so I'm not sure.
Where
So
can I
maybe
watch the movie La Atalante? Let's see what comes up. It says Amazon Prime Video has it, so looks like we're
okay,
good. Looks like we're good. What we'll do is we'll put a film on the chopping block that doesn't make the list, and if we can't get this film, we will
okay,
bring this film in its place.
sounds like a plan.
So with that, Will, we are up to 4 films right now. All
Okay,
right. We have our international pick. We have our time period. We have a rom-com, and we have a American drama.
all right,
Where do we feel with Alfred Hitchcock and Peter Lorre? Let me do this real quick.
yeah,
Let me do this. I'm going to call it the ensemble pick, okay?
okay.
Would you rather go with The Man Who Knew Too Much and the Barretts of Wimple Street?
Mm,
Barretts of Wimple Street, Norma Shear, Frederick March, Charles Lawton, as just
yeah.
like this dream team of actors and see how they do? Um, or do we want to see Alfred Hitchcock and Peter Lorre and see what they do? Or is that a double
Oh
feature?
man. Well, I thought you were going to pose this as The Man Who Knew Too Much or The Black Cat, is where I thought you were
Oh,
going with this.
interesting, because,
Um,
okay, that makes more sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that is the easier choice, I think, because The Man Who Knew Too Much would be my choice there.
Okay.
Because this is supposed to be thriller esque, in Alfred Hitchcock fashion. So if we're looking for, something in that thriller, suspenseful, horror type genre, then I feel like this would probably be the best choice for it.
Okay. Lock it in. I'm going to move the other ones to the side for now, but I'm not going to displace them. Let's just see what happens.
Okay.
So right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks. I'm willing to go as high as 8 if we do a double feature type thing. We'll see what comes
Sure.
of it. That means the remaining ones are this. We have The Black Cat. We have The Gay Divorcee. The Thin Man. Barretts of Wimple Street. And The Scarlet Empress.
Okay.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks left, and we've got 3 slots available. What do you think?
Okay. Oh, I think it's a tough spot. I feel like The Thin Man, we should watch. I think it would probably work as a double feature type of film, and I think it's got a few different places it would work. It sounds like it's a little bit of a murder mystery, so if you wanted to have something a little more, bring
We
a
can
little
go
bit more levity, you could watch it with A Man Who Knew Too Much. Or
Yep.
if you wanted to watch two people in love solving a crime after two people falling in love and it happened one night. So I think you could watch this one as double feature either way.
All righty, I'm gonna lock it in then. We'll go Thin Man, highest rated movie on Letterboxd, and it's a 4.0. So, and again, W.S. Van Dyke crossing off another director off the list. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I want to get to these repeats when they absolutely need to be, but there's some names that just kind of sit in the zeitgeist, and you're like, oh, I've never seen a movie by that guy. But let me give you one example.
Yeah.
We just lost David Lynch.
Hmm.
I've seen one movie of his.
Oh, okay. Have you watched Twin Peaks at all?
That's the one.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
the movie.
I just can't. What's that?
You watched The Fire Walk with Me, or did you
No.
watch the show?
Wait a minute. Twin Peaks. I'm not thinking of the right movie then.
Twin Peaks is the TV show from the early '90s.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. No. Okay. Then I haven't seen any David Lynch.
Okay.
But I'm very much aware of who David Lynch is, right?
Yeah.
That's the point of this whole project. So what am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of Cape Fear. I was thinking of Robert De Niro. Who did that movie?
Oh, is that Scorsese?
Oh my God, you might be right. Let's pause there. We'll come to that when it matters. Okay, so I think you're right. Thin Life could be a great who knew too much. That could be a great double feature, but we'll lock those in at the end. We're up to 6.
Okay.
Black Cat, The Gay Divorcee, Thin Man we just selected. That leaves us with Barretts of Wimple Street, Scarlet Empress, The Black Cat, and I think that's it. That's where we are.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Well, I think if we're looking for one more double feature, the Scarlet Empress might be a good choice here with Cleopatra, and then we just kind of skip the rise of Catherine the Great. It would be interesting to see what Alex Corda does, but I feel like maybe this is the third strike, right? If Ernst Lubitsch, Joseph von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich strike out again, then we know that maybe this just isn't for us, right? That plus we get a little bit of a buffer there. We're not choosing this movie for the movie; we're choosing it as a companion to Cleopatra. So,
all right, I'm going to allow this. I just want
Okay.
I want it stated though. 2 of my probably 5 worst movies have been Shanghai Express and Morocco. So
Yeah.
I am doing this mainly because I love my buddy Will, and I'm with you. So let's lock it in. We'll go the Scarlet Empress if I can have the last pick here.
Okay. Well, you didn't tell me this part.
Well, that would be 7, and then I'm kind of torn now myself between the Black Cat and Barretts of Wimple Street. So
Yeah.
I'm always excited to bring outside people on the show. We can get David back on the show for
Yeah.
Black Cat. But maybe I think the idea of seeing Norma Shear, Frederick March, and Charles Lawton, that excites me as well. But that feels like those 3, even though they might not ever act together again, just the idea, I'm just not sure we're ever going to come back to Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi. So work it out with me. I'll give you a say. Work it out with me. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I looked it up to make sure that I knew what we were getting into if we went with the Black Cat, because I am intrigued by the Barretts of Wimple Street. But this sounds interesting. It's trapped in a home of a Satan-worshipping priest. That's always fascinating to me to see, like, the the way people view Satan through time, because right, it's people just talk about it all the time like it's definitely real, right? Sorry, but one of the writers of there's a story by Edgar Allan Poe that apparently this is drawn from, and his writing style has always intrigued me. So it would be fun to have David back on too. So I think maybe that's the clincher. If we can go Black Cat and get David back on for a podcast, that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, so just to kind of go off what we're saying then, here's where we are. Do we want it? I'm just going to give the list, and we're comparing it to the Barretts of Wimple Street. Okay. Do we want? Are we 100% sure we want it to happen in one night?
Yeah.
Okay. The Thin Man.
Yes.
Our French film La Adelante.
Yes. Yep.
Cleopatra.
98%.
Okay. Imitation of Life.
100%.
The Man Who Knew Too Much.
99%. Yeah.
And then Scarlet Empress.
That one's I'm pretty sure I'm good with Scarlet Empress if we're looking for a double feature. Yeah.
Okay. So that then leaves Barrett's of Wimple Street out as our number 9 pick. So what that means is that we are La Adelante. If we cannot find it, that would be the one that slides into its place.
Okay.
Unless you want to do another double feature.
I'm
not sure. Here's what I'm going to give you an argument for both. Do I want to watch the movie? Sure. It seems interesting. I'd like to watch the movie, Will.
Yeah.
Do I think we need to set a precedent and start watching 9 movies? No, I don't think we need to do that. And I think we need to start cutting movies that are hard. So
yeah, I feel like we need to be at 6 weeks for each year, and if we really feel like we need to watch 9, then we would have to talk ourselves into finding a third double feature. So that's where I'm at with it. So I feel like if we got to be at 8.
And my worry is that this is like how it's like our loophole, right? It's how we're solving problems. And my fear is that when we get to those years that we know more about these movies and more about the actors and directors, we're going to have 6 weeks of 12 movies and we might be doing triple features. So
man.
I'm okay with leaving it off. For those of you that want to watch it on your own, or Will, if you want to watch it on your own, it is available. It looks like on Prime. You guys can check it out. So, all right, for those at home, It Happened One Night, directed by Frank Capra. The Thin Man, directed by W.S. Van Dyke. Our French cinema pick by Jean Vigo. Cleopatra by Cecil B. DeMille. Imitation of Life by John Stahl. The Man Who Knew Too Much by Alfred Hitchcock. And then finally, Scarlet Empress by Joseph von Sternberg. And then at the end, bringing up the rear, The Black Cat by Edgar Ulmer. That's 1. That's 2. That is 3, 4, 5 new directors and 3 repeats. I think we did a pretty good job, buddy. I'm happy with the list. And I think we lost him right at the end here. Will, are you with us, buddy? Right at the end, we lost Will. For those of you that are still sticking around, where you can find the Barretts of Wimple Street, I said, is on Prime. But that's our 8. So we have 8 movies that we'll watch in 6 weeks. We need 2 double features if we can find them. And I already think we discussed The Man Who Knew Too Much and Thin Man because they're both detective-type films. That's going to be it. And then it looks like we're probably going to go Cleopatra and the Scarlet Empress as our time period pieces there. So let me get Will back in here if I can. And there he is. Welcome back, William.
All right. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can. I was just explaining to our audience here. Oh, I've lost you.
Oh, geez. What's going on here?
Call me back, buddy. Call me back if you can hear me.
Oh, no.
I was just explaining to our audience about the double feature that we're going to be doing, and I think we're going to have to do a second one as well, given the nature of 8 films, and we're trying to get them done in 6 weeks. So,
okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, great.
So what do you think? This is what I said while you're off camera, Will. Thin Man will be double featured with The Man Who Knew Too Much, unless we were going to go The Man Who Knew Too Much with Black Cat. Which one did you want to link up with there?
Well, it depends on what the other double feature would be in that instance. We have Cleopatra and Scarlet
That's
Empress,
what
right?
I thought was the
Yeah.
obvious go-to.
So why don't we, if we can talk David into it, then we do the man who knew too much and the
The
Black
Black
Cat
Cat?
together. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure it won't be twisting his arm too much, but I'm sure we'll be able to get him into it and bring him on the show here again. And Will, I'm not sure which one we'll watch first here, but for those
Sure.
that are listening at home, we'll post that on Instagram and on TikTok. You guys can always find us there. Will, anything else for the year 1934, buddy?
I forgot to look up who won the World Series here, but it was probably the Yankees. So that's all I got.
Feels like Babe Ruth is kicking ass right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, most likely.
All right. For those of you, you know where to find us. Go to Cinema 100 on TikTok, on Instagram. Hell, you can even email us if you feel, so excited to do so. Otherwise, keep watching movies.
All right, we'll see you.